Are you frustrated because you feel like you're doing all the things? You're eating well, you're exercising, you're watching what you eat, watching your calories, you're moving more, but you don't seem to be losing weight. Well, welcome back to Rejuvenated Women, Impeccable Health for High Performing Women. I'm your host, Dr. Alex Swenson Ridley, and this is another quick health tip. Um, on today's episode, we are going to unpack what is really going on with weight loss resistance. And I have to preface this discussion around I have been incredibly resistant to doing anything in the weight loss industry or even being attached to that because I just feel like it's so gimmicky. There's so much bad information out there and just junk and junk supplements and junk products and I've just always had this like complete standoffishness to talking about weight loss really. But the reality is, so many of the women I work with, I would actually put it at like 99%. I've got 1% who really don't need to lose weight, and the rest of the 99 not only are overweight, but they've been struggling and stuck there for so long, and it can be so frustrating and so challenging. And a lot of my perspective on this has changed over the last couple months and maybe year or so because I think there's a huge missing in a discussion around weight loss and why some of us have a really hard time. It's not something that's wrong with you. It's not that you're not doing the right things. Like there can be some of that if you've gotten bad information or, are following old methods like cutting calories and working out more. I talk about this a lot on the show, so hopefully we're not going to spend a lot of time there. But, ultimately, that old advice, which is typically what a medical doctor will tell you, it doesn't work. And there's a lot of reasons why it doesn't work, but it's not just that simple. Number one, that was designed on men's physiology and how men operate and not women. And women are very different in how our hormones are balanced and our bodies function, and physiologically, we're just different. So what do we do with this, not being able to lose weight? And I want to share my own story in talking about this because for the last probably 3 years, I have watched my weight just increase. And it's something I wanted to ignore. It's, but then it'll show up, right? Like I'll see an actual full body picture of myself, or I I hardly ever weighed myself. And when I had wrist surgery in 2019, they weighed me, and so I stepped on the scale, and I'd been somewhere around 145, 150, which was more than I used to weigh. But I was like, I'm a mom now, and I'm in my mid 30s, so it wasn't as huge of a change. I wasn't super surprised. But I got on that scale and it was 167. And I was like, So I was going into surgery and I told myself, like, I'm going to recover from this and then we're going to work hard and we're going to get this weight off. And I recovered. I started working out more. I always had eaten well. But I cut sugars out again. I did all this stuff. And a couple months later, I weighed myself again and it was even higher. And so then I started weighing myself regularly, and my teenagers were discussing something and got on the scale at our house, and they're like, "This scale must be wrong. It's, I weigh way more than this," because they're, trying to bulk up for football season. So they're like, "I weigh like 10 pounds more than this," and I was like, "Whoa, whoa, 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 whoa! There's no way that this scale is 10 pounds off because it was telling me that I was like, it has to be 10 pounds too much. Like, there's no way I weigh that much, right?" So I bought a new scale, and nope, there it was. As of, a couple months ago, I topped the scale at 180 pounds. And I had always been, somewhere around 135. I was a size 2 to 4. I didn't have to work really hard or try really hard to just kind of stay there. I always had bad, poor body image and, always thought of myself as being too fat. But then I hit actually being too fat or having too much weight on me and realized how delusional I was with all that. But I also came up against a lot of frustration because all of the things that I knew to do, which were a lot of, exercise more, but I knew some stuff about, not doing cardio. I knew to do yoga. I knew to, take walks. I knew to do things that were going to decrease my stress and help my body in that way. And I knew all the dietary stuff, and I lead women through making these changes and watch them lose weight every single day. That said, lately, not all of them have been losing weight, and I hadn't been losing weight. And so, after burying my head in the sand, feeling just frustrated and embarrassed and like wanting to hang up the phone whenever my mom would ask if I was sure I wasn't pregnant, going to buy a new bra and discovering my breast had grown like 3 cup sizes, and I was just like, what the heck is going on? I had a lot of WTF moments in the last couple of years, right? None of my pants fitting, and I've talked about this before, but I finally decided to take my head out of the sand and dive into this world that is known as the weight loss industry and just, really approach like, what are we all missing in this? Because I know it's not just me that is incredibly frustrated and has tried the Trim Healthy Mama or the Arbonne shakes or the, Nutrisystem or there's so many things out there, and a lot of them are super gimmicky, and some of them, legitimately have some good science behind them, but why do they not work for everyone? And why is it only a select few that they work for, the keto, the paleo, all the different things? And in doing that, I finally got some answers. And I want to share that with you because, sitting here today, recording this over the last 6 weeks, I've actually dropped 10. I've seen the scale go the other way finally. I've dropped 10 pounds, which doesn't seem like that much, but it equates to I've lost over 26 inches of body mass in different areas. 5 inches from my shoulders, my breasts are back to like a cup size B, and I am so excited about that because that's where I've always been, up until the last couple of years. And I am, starting to feel confident in myself. I feel like the bloating and the weight coming off, and it's just melting away, and I'm not exercising more or eating less. And so, there's a couple things that go along with this. Did I change some stuff about how I was eating? Yes, I did. I made some gradual transitions. I really got off of all sugars, including fruit, especially this last week. Has not been easy, I'll be honest, but there's something about making that switch to fat burning to reset your metabolism. I don't love the keto way, and there's it's not keto if you are also eating vegetables. So it's more about the vegetables and the dark leafy greens and all of those things than it is about just eating fat. But there's been some transitions I've made there. I've really been intentional about my stress levels and managing that. I've actually exercised less, probably. I've taken time to just rest and to let my body go through this, but I've seen my energy come up and, like I said, my confidence being restored, my clothes fitting again. I'd started getting rid of all of them, and now I'm like, I kind of wish I hadn't done that, but it leads to an opportunity for new. So what the heck did I figure out? Let's talk about that. And I've mentioned this, I talked on a couple episodes ago. I talked about thyroid and subclinical hypothyroidism. I talked about sex hormones and estrogen dominance, and just things being off with your sex hormones. And so those are all pieces of the pie. But there can be a lot of things going on that could be causing resistance to weight loss, and they're not things that a magical diet or the best workout routine or this person's tweak on whatever program is going to necessarily solve. And so what they are is, for myself, I looked at heavy metals in my body. I looked at my hormone levels. I finally did some testing. So I looked at cortisol, I looked at my stress hormones, and I also looked at my thyroid. And what all of that told me, and then underneath that, I did a toxicity assessment on myself, which is actually just a paper thing that I would be happy to send to anybody who wants it. I'm going to have you actually email me. I don't have like a link set up for this, but if you want to send me an email, Dr. Alex at emergentwomenih.com. I'll put it in the show notes. Send me an email and just say you want the toxicity assessment, because honestly, that was actually I think the key piece that I was able to put this all together, because I had an underlying infection, and I'd been wondering about this for years, because I'd have these moments like either if I worked too hard or I'd get going with exercise and then I would crash and I'd feel like I was getting the flu, and I just I would feel awful and have to take time off and like rest all over again. And so it was like this cyclical thing, and I just was in the back of my mind, I'm like, is something like, do I have some sort of infection or something that's going on that's triggering this? And the answer was yes. And so when I started to, I did some really targeted specific supplementation with supporting my body's detoxing of estrogen, which happens in your liver. If your liver's not working, that leads to insulin resistance, which is another thing that can cause weight loss resistance. So if you have high insulin levels, if you have high stress, if you have, your body's not functioning well, even if you're eating really clean, we can develop resistance. It can cause inflammation if we're constantly eating the same things, because our body builds up a kind of resistance to it because there's not enough variety in our lives. So I had all that going on. So I did some simple things, took some targeted supplementation around, that infection, supporting my liver and its ability to detox estrogen, and took a few essential oils that also help with that, day to day, and just started eating better, and started, I get out and walk a little bit more now because it's nice out, and I take my dog out and whatnot. But that was it. And over the last 6 weeks, like I said, I've dropped 10 pounds and multiples of inches, upwards of 20. I've lost count adding it up, but somewhere around 26 inches of just body mass from my body, a couple percentages of body fat, all of that. And so I share this, like the last thing I want to do is be another success story for, a new program in weight loss. I can't stand all that if you can't tell. But what I do want to impart with you is, and there's another piece to this actually that we need to talk about. But if you're feeling frustrated, if you are struggling with this, there's probably a reason. And, if you can really be honest with yourself and say, hey, I'm doing all the things and I'm not losing weight. Why am I not losing weight? Then it's time to look for some outside help, and not your Western medical doctor, right? And not the next Facebook ad you see, or not any of that stuff. Someone who will come at this with a whole picture perspective like I do. And if I'm your person, awesome, reach out to me, let's connect. If I'm not your person, totally fine. Find your person, right? What I want to say about this. So that's one piece. This is like the physical side. You got to figure out what's going on with you physically that's contributing to this. That's number one. The second thing, and this probably started, and actually did start before I started taking on any of the, like, checked my labs and started taking on any of the stuff related to, changing my diet or taking anything, was I recognized that my mindset had started to suck in a big way around, my health and around how I looked and how confident I was and how I dressed and all of these things. So I started making some, deliberate changes of, like, dressing a little nicer and doing my hair, and not just for when I show up on these videos, and giving myself some positive reinforcement. But the big thing was I really had to start to believe that I can lose the weight. And that comes into, I've talked a lot about quantum physics, about, like, we have to retrain our brain to accept that this can be a reality. And so my new reality is that losing, it's upwards. I was 180. I want to get down, 135 has been where I always felt the best. It's a healthy weight for me. It's a good BMI for me. It's all of those things. I feel good at that weight. Like, I know I can exercise and have it. Like, that's just where I feel good, right? And we all have that. And I've listened to so many podcasts, and I played around on Noom, and I did all the things that probably anyone listening to this episode has done, right? I know about Trim Healthy Mama. Like, I have a lot of the knowledge that maybe you feel like you're missing in terms of nutrition and food and all of that. But even I got trapped in not being able to figure myself out. And so it requires sometimes some outside perspective or some, like, really serious research, and having someone in your corner who can help you with that. So all that to say, it's just like, I know that I'm going to weigh my ideal weight again, which is 135. With that said, I don't like people to be attached to numbers, but so it's not necessarily about that number, but if I can get back to the feeling that I had when I was that weight, that is another acceptable, awesome, just place to be. And so that has become my belief and my reality, and I've started relating to myself as already being there. And so I have more energy, and I like how my clothes look, and and I've seen my face start to thin out and my breast size come down, and all of those things. Some women like to have big breasts. I have never been one of them. So, what I want to leave you with is, if this has been a struggle, a frustration, like, start with the mindset shifts. Start with, we have a great episode coming up this week. I've been doing lots and lots of interviews. And so on Thursday, right after this episode is on Tuesday, Thursday, I talk with a woman who's a executive coach and kind of a high level coach, and we actually have a pretty long conversation around integrity and how do we get back in integrity with ourselves. And I was in this terrible place because I'm a women's health coach and I'm helping other women do these things, but I'm struggling on my own. And so it wasn't until I was really able to shift that for myself that I'm starting to see a lot of them have the pieces click into place, and they're able to shift and transform a lot of that for themselves as well. So start with the mind stuff. Find somebody, whether, if it's not me, and I work with women all over the country and all over the world at this point, Canada, UK, anywhere. We can connect. Send me an email, dralex@emergentwomenih.com. And like I said, that toxicity assessment is paper. It's free. It just gives you a baseline, and you actually get to see the results as you do it. And then we can have a conversation from there and really figure out, what is going on in your body and how do we actually fix it, because that's going to be a little different for everybody. Yes, nutrition, yes, all these things, but it's going to be very individualized to you. And what's possible when you actually get all that put together and that piece of the pie and that picture is the weight finally starts to come off, and you stop experiencing this weight loss resistance and stop being frustrated and just enjoy life. And who doesn't want that? All right, this has been another Rejuvenate Health Tip. We will be back with another one next week, and I will see you all on Thursday.